How can you say Boromir's not your favorite? I don't understand. He's literally the best character in the series. He's been fighting the forces of Mordor since day one, he's the hero of Gondor, and he walked all the way up to Rivendell just to walk everybody all the way back down. He's a saint. He's a saint. Hi, I'm Gruffus. Welcome to Puppet Tabletop, and today we're going to be taking a look at The Lord of the Rings, Fate of the Fellowship. Okay, well then who's your favorite? Denethor? The destroyer of tomatoes? It began with the manufacturing of the game. One was purchased by Gruffus, immortal and wisest of all beings. Oh, come on, dude, really?
Don't you think?
Really, this is my segment. Okay, I can say what I want.
Whatever you say,
Sheesh.
Gruffus the wise and fair. Ridiculous. Nobody thinks.
Unbelievable. Anyway, let's get to the review. I cannot express how excited I am to talk about Fate of the Fellowship. This is the most excited I've been to review a game since I started the channel. Ever since I was but a wee little sewer child, I was obsessed with The Lord of the Rings. I love it. I was around 7 when the movies came out, and it was unlike anything my tiny little brain had seen before. The action, the lore, the epic scale of the world, it blew my frickin' mind. It wasn't until much later in life that I got around to actually reading the books, but for me, nothing is ever gonna top the awe and adoration I have for those first 3 movies. I was so pumped to write this review that I had the Two Towers playing in the background while I was sitting on the couch writing this on my laptop. So given how hard I'm geeking out on the franchise right now, you'd imagine that I love Lord of the Rings games in general. Well, you'd be shocked to learn that I actually don't. Some of them, like the War of the Rings game or the card game by Fantasy Flight, are pretty good. But recently the IP is getting slapped on so many games that it's starting to feel like the MCU of the board game space. There's money making blood in the water, and now everybody wants a piece. I mean, just look at the 2024 Board Game Geek Awards. You're gonna tell me that a re-implementation of Seven Wonders Duel is better than all these other games? You're gonna tell me that a fun but unoriginal Trick Taker beat Slay the Frickin' Spire for best co-op game? Like, here I am claiming to be obsessed with the franchise, and yet I can't understand why those board games were so widely adored. None of those games gave me even remotely close to the same amount of joy that I felt watching the movies or even reading the books. Was something wrong with me? Was I being way too uptight about this? Probably. But it turns out I was also just waiting for the perfect game. And it's finally here. One game to rule them all. My precious. In Lord of the Rings Fate of the Fellowship, 1 to 5 players will be tasked with trying to keep the forces of evil at bay, while trying to sneak Sam and his emo buddy Frodo into Mordor. At the beginning of the game, you'll start by setting up the Shadow Deck. If you've ever played a Pandemic game, you'll recognize this as the deck of bad stuff that you have to reveal from each round. You'll then place all of the starting friendly and shadow troops on their starting locations. You'll also place all of the Nazgul and the Eye of Sauron on the board. After all that, you reveal some cards from the top of the shadow deck and add some shadow troops to some random locations. There's also a player deck that you'll need to form. This contains location cards and event cards which each player will draw from to form a starting hand. Then the remaining cards are split into piles as evenly as possible, with each pile having a Skies Darken card shuffled into it. The piles are then stacked on one another to form the player deck. There's also 24 objectives in the game, and each one gives you a different thematic goal related to a pivotal scene in the series. Maybe you need Gandalf to defeat the Balrog in Moria, or perhaps you have to destroy Saruman's operation in Isengard. You'll randomly select 3 of these objectives to use during your game, and in addition to those 3 goals, there's a 4th required goal that will be used in every single game that has to be accomplished at the end. And that's to get Frodo and Sam to Mount Doom with the ring and cast it into the fire. Isildur! Man, those movies are just so damn good. Maybe I should go watch them right now. Anyways, your starting objectives may have required characters that have to be used. You'll take those characters listed on the objective cards and any random ones needed so that there's enough for everybody to have 2 characters. Everyone will distribute the characters, set them up in their starting locations, and let the journey to save Middle-earth begin. On each player's turn, they'll be activating both of their characters, but one character is going to be a little bit more efficient than the other one. That's because one character gets to take 4 actions while the other only gets to take 1. It's up to you to decide which one is which each turn and which order they go in. It gives you a lot of flexibility when deciding what you want to do with your turn. And there's a bunch of different actions you can take on your turn. You can travel, which allows you to move your character along any path connected to their location. And when you travel, you can bring any number of friendly troops and other characters with you. But there's two important things to keep in mind when traveling. First is that some paths have a cost associated with them. In order to travel along those paths, you need to discard a card or token matching each of the symbols displayed on it. Second is that if Frodo is the moving character, or part of the group of characters moving, you're going to have to take some extra precautions. You're going to have to discard a stealth card or a stealth token in order to prevent the forces of Sauron from searching for him. That's because throughout the duration of the game, the forces of Mordor and Sauron's Eye are going to be gazing all across Middle-earth trying to find Frodo in the ring. When a search must be made, you count up the number of Nazgul in Frodo and Sam's region, along with the number of shadow troops on their current location. You roll that many of the black search dice, and for each white tree that you roll, you lose a hope. Besides traveling, you can also take the Fellowship action. This allows you to give a card to, or take a card from, another player at your location, if the card matches the region you're in. Now is probably a good point to stop and point out one of the differences between this game and the other Pandemic System games. Typically in the Pandemic System games, the player cards are tied to specific locations. In this game, they're tied to general regions. For example, you might have a card that just says Gondor. In that case, you can give it to another player as long as you're both in the same location, and that location is anywhere in Gondor. Alright, now that we've cleared that up, let's get back to the actions. The next one you can take is called Prepare. This allows you to discard some of your cards at specific locations to gain a token with the matching symbol that card had. And these tokens can be spent on anything that a card can be spent on. The only difference is that you can't give or take them from other players. But it gives you an opportunity to keep your hand at a reasonable size while also not missing out on resources that you would have lost if you had to discard them. Another action is the Muster action, and that's muster, not mustard. I know you think I said mustard, I ain't talking about no hot dogs. This action allows you to generate troops at designated locations in the world. And you're going to need those troops for the next action, which is to attack. If you're at a location that contains both friendly and shadow troops, you can choose to take an attack action. This action allows you to roll some dice to determine how many friendly and enemy troops get removed from the board. There's a couple different results you can get on the combat dice that we won't really go into, but suffice to say it's usually not good for you, which means you want to be very particular about when you choose to go into combat. And finally, the last action you can take is to capture a stronghold. Almost every major location around the map is marked as either a haven, which is a safe space for a player, or Shadow Stronghold, which produces enemy units. Throughout the game, you'll have the opportunity to use the capture action to spend cards and convert Shadow Strongholds into havens. Some of the major perks of taking over a stronghold are that you gain some hope, but also that location stops crapping out shadow troops on a regular basis, so it's pretty nice. And so that's really all you're going to be doing on your turn, is running around doing those actions in order to contain the shadow troops, move Frodo and Sam closer to Mordor, and hopefully knock out all those objectives along the way. After your turn is over, you draw 2 cards from the player deck and add them to your hand. Unless it's a Skies Darkened card, that's bad news. If you draw a Skies Darkened card, the game escalates in difficulty and some bad stuff happens. So while it's unavoidable, planning around these cards is crucial to winning the game. Then, after you've drawn your 2 cards, you'll reveal some cards from the top of the Shadow deck. The cards in the Shadow deck have 2 different card backs. When you reveal a card from the Shadow deck, you look at the back of the card that is now on top of the Shadow deck. If there's a red banner on the top of the card, then you'll resolve the Advanced section listed at the top of the revealed card. This results in shadow troops making their way around the board and fighting any friendly troops they bump into along the way. If shadow troops ever end up on a haven space and there's no friendly troops remaining on that space, the haven becomes a shadow stronghold and you lose a bunch of hope. Now, if the card on the top of the shadow deck has a black banner with a red Eye of Sauron sigil on it, then you resolve the bottom half of the revealed card. This typically results in troops being added to the board, Nazguls being moved around, and maybe a search being made against Frodo and Sam. Afterwards, the round ends and play moves to the next player. The game continues this way until the players either lose by running out of hope, or win by getting Frodo and Sam to Mount Doom and successfully destroying the ring. And that's how you play it. So, what did I like about the Lord of the Rings Fate of the Fellowship? I want to start by saying that this is the first Lord of the Rings board game that I've ever played that actually made me feel like I was experiencing the epic story firsthand. They did such a good job making every aspect of this game fit perfectly with Tolkien's world and story. The characters all have abilities and restrictions that make perfect sense given their role in the story. They even have Boromir in here as a playable character. He was my favorite character ever since I was a kid, and childhood me would be losing his mind knowing I could play as him in a board game. But aside from the characters, the objectives that you're accomplishing in this game are also all epic and important moments from the series. One of the most memorable moments I had when playing involved me using Gandalf to defeat the Balrog in Moria for one of my objectives. Then, I brought Gandalf and Aragorn to Rohan afterwards, where I had to free Theoden's mind, which gave me a bunch of Rohirrim troops to use. And while I was doing all of this, a huge swarm of shadow troops had begun amassing on the border of Mordor and began marching towards Minas Tirith. My wife was then holding the shadow troops at bay with Legolas until Gandalf and Aragorn arrived just in time with a huge force of Rohirrim troops to help liberate the city. And while all the forces of Mordor had marched towards Minas Tirith, it gave Frodo and Sam the perfect opportunity to sneak into Mordor without being detected. Ultimately, we ended up losing the game by a single dice roll, but the story that unfolded was so epic and engaging that I finished the game happier than I had with any other game in recent memory. The objectives in the board state all replicated the epic battles and stories so well. I legitimately felt like I was experiencing the movies all over again. I had the same level of excitement and joy that I had when I was a kid watching those movies for the first time. If you're a fan of The Lord of the Rings, this game is going to make you feel like you just hit that hobbit pipeweed so hard you woke up in Middle-earth. Also, the card and board art is just fantastic in this game. It has this kind of exaggerated style that adds just a touch of whimsy, while the colors and grittiness keep the mood serious. It's exactly the type of art that I would want when playing in this setting. And perfectly complementing the art in this case is the component quality. The cards feel nice and they're durable, the dice are fantastic, and the game even comes with a dice tower version of Barad-dûr. Fate of the Fellowship is a pricey game, but damn is it beautiful. I would leave it up year-round if I could. I also think that mechanically, this is the best implementation of the Pandemic system since Pandemic Legacy Season 1. I'm a big fan of the Pandemic system and own multiple games in that system, but I'd be lying if I said that a lot of those games feel a bit samey. Fate of the Fellowship, though, truly stands on its own. You can definitely see the DNA of the Pandemic system in here, but the way that you use your actions, the way that you win and lose the game, and then the way that you progress all just feels wholly unique to Fate of the Fellowship. It doesn't feel like it replaces any of the other Pandemic games, but it also doesn't feel like it's a redundant copy of any of them. It just feels like its own game worthy of its own space in a collection. Lastly, it's time we get into the best part of every review. You know it, you either really care about it, or you don't at all. It's box time! Now the box that Fate of the Fellowship comes in, it's definitely not a looker. It comes with an insert that has all of these oddly cut out shapes and compartments that, at first glance, seem unnecessary and flimsy. But in this case, the looks are deceiving. After you have to put away the game for the first time, you're really gonna love this box. There's a designated space for practically every component. There's card holders on the side, there's a box inside the box to keep your minis and tokens safe, and there's even a slot to keep your dice tower nice and secure without requiring you to dismantle the whole thing. The game even comes with a nice cheat sheet that walks you through the storage process. The cherry on top is that not only does it store everything safe and secure, but the box still has a nice amount of space left inside, so you can guarantee it'll close every time without any kind of box lift. Overall, while not being the most beautiful box in the world, it does exactly what it's supposed to do, and I'm very satisfied with the storage solution provided here. So, what did I not like? Well, there's not really anything that I strongly dislike about it, but there are a few things that I want to mention. The first one is that there's an objective in the game that has Gandalf fighting the Balrog in Moria. It's an awesome objective, but it also requires Gandalf to be temporarily removed from the board, where he eventually returns as Gandalf the White and has a slightly different ability. Unfortunately, he doesn't have an updated character card for you to use. Well, there is, but the issue is that it comes in a promo. I pre-ordered the game from my local store and they were lucky enough to get some of the promos, so I got it, but in all honesty, this promo should have just come in the base box. I understand them not wanting to add an additional figure into the box, but I really think they should have added an updated player card for Gandalf the White into the base game. Locking that behind a promo just seemed a little bit unnecessary in my opinion. It's an incredibly helpful addition, so I can't imagine not having that included in the game. The second thing that I want to mention is the troop size. Many people have expressed that they're not too happy with the fact that these troop meeples, well, they're itty bitty. And while the troop meeples are indeed tiny, I think it's out of necessity, because there's dozens of them on the board at a time, and if they were any larger, it would be a huge pain to manage them. But while that didn't bother me, it did seem to bother a lot of other people, so I figured I would include it in the not so good section in case you're one of the people that is off-put by that. Additionally, if you're not a big Lord of the Rings fan, this might not be the game for you. While I mentioned earlier that it felt like all of these epic events were unfolding on the map, that's largely in part because I was able to draw parallels between the source material and the current board state. My wife Ivy, on the other hand, is not much of a Lord of the Rings fan, so our experiences were a bit different. Oh my gosh, Gandalf just fell fighting the Balrog. Fly, you fools!
So I guess I need more of these heart cards to take this action then.
No way, the forces of Mordor are almost at Minas Tirith. Gondor calls for aid. This is so frickin' awesome!
Huh. That's a lot of red guys over there.
See what I mean? If you're a fan of the movies and books, you're gonna be locked in having the time of your life. But if you aren't that into Lord of the Rings, it'll probably just end up feeling like a decent co-op game that uses a lot of weird words and phrases that mean nothing to you. Lastly, sometimes you're gonna have turns in the game that just feel, well, a little bit pointless. Most of the time the game is flowing with a sense of urgency, but sometimes, especially when you're trying to achieve an objective that needs specific cards or tokens, you might just find that your characters are standing around without anything obvious to do, just waiting for the right cards to be drawn. I'd say that pretty consistently, once or twice a game, a player's just gonna end their turn early because they have nothing else to do. And at 2 players, this isn't really as bad of an issue because the turns go by so quickly, but if you're playing with 5 people, you're gonna be waiting a long time before it comes back to you, and maybe by then you'll get to do what you want, but there's still no guarantee. To have nothing to contribute on your turn at higher player counts can feel like a bummer. Still, despite the occasionally uneventful turn, the game still remains epic and fun in my opinion.
One soda to rule them all. One soda to refresh them. One soda to fuel them all, and in the deliciousness quench them. Splorgle Blast! Never let the party die!
Now, for the solo mode review, please welcome our resident solo reviewer, Mortimer.
What the hell was that?
What was what?
The soda commercial. Why was Topher in
Oh,
it?
remember how my brother Topher stopped by last time? Said he was gonna help us out with our money situation?
I dropped the contract on your desk just now. Once you sign it, you'll be an official partner of Splorgle Blast Refreshments and their line of Splorgle Blast drinks.
What money situation? It's like you keep acting weird and secretive all the time. What's going on?
Oh, did I say money situation? I just meant that it would be nice to have some extra revenue around here is all, you know? Don't worry about it, it's nothing. And besides, remember Topher? He said he got that new job? Yeah, he's the spokesperson for Splorgle Blast now.
Splorgle Blast. Isn't that the drink that put all those people in the hospital with explosive bowel syndrome?
I mean, that was never proven. That was never proven. Listen, we can talk about this later. How's the solo mode?
Fate of the Fellowship has one of the best solo modes in a multiplayer game I've played. And not just this year. It plays similarly to the multiplayer mode, but instead of managing 2 characters, you're managing 5. And you're doing all this with a single hand of cards. Each turn, instead of activating 2 different characters, you'll instead be doing 4 actions with 1 character, and 1 action with Sam and Frodo every round. Each turn, you do the same thing with the next character. And because Frodo and Sam are forced to be used as the second character with 1 action every round, there's a natural progression to the game that emulates the multiplayer game perfectly in the solo mode. Even though this turn breakdown is different from the standard mode, it still works flawlessly. The game still keeps the same cadence while feeling just as fun as the multiplayer. I honestly found myself wanting to play this solo back to back, and I was excited every time I got it to the table. Sometimes, I even thought the game was calling to me. But yeah, the solo mode was a slam dunk. I absolutely loved it, and I would recommend it to anybody interested in solo gaming and Lord of the Rings. I would even own this just to play it for the solo mode, that's how good it was.
And thank you, Mortimer.
So what did you mean about that money situation?
I mean, do I really need to say it? This is probably one of the best games that I've played in years. It made me feel like a kid again, giddy and excited as I got to experience my own epic adventure in Middle-earth. Fate of the Fellowship exceeded my expectations in practically every way. From the simple but epic feeling gameplay loop to the level of love and care put into honoring the setting, there's just so much to love about this game. This will be one of those games that's going to be staying in my collection until the day we're all invaded and destroyed by the aliens of Glarbulon 5. If you're a Lord of the Rings fan, the odds are this game is going to knock your frickin' socks off. And with that, it's time we bestow it with the highest honor that we have to give here at Puppet Tabletop. The Puppet Chef Kiss. Mwah! Well, that's going to do it for this one. As always, thanks for watching, and remember to shop at your local board game store if you can. Okay, but seriously, how can you not love Boromir? He sacrificed himself for Merry and Pippin. They took the little ones!